For our next segment, we're excited to welcome Sean O'Hare. He is the founder of 100 Million Strong and works with the Tim Tebow Foundation. He's here to discuss the foundation's upcoming event called Night to Shine, which is a prom night experience for people with special needs ages 16 and older. It is such a great event. Sean also founded his own nonprofit called 100 Million Strong, which hosts special needs runway shows. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Lovely to have you. And the events that you're a part of are just so life-changing, not just for the people who get to experience, but for their families, their loved ones, and people who even get to volunteer and help out with those events. It's really paying it forward on so many levels. Can you tell us about your work with the Tim Tebow Foundation?
Sure. So I met Tim a few years ago at a luncheon, and that was in their second year of starting Night to Shine. And when he explained it to me that this was a worldwide we're hoping to be a worldwide prom for those with special needs, I said, well, hey, do you have one in New York yet? And he said, we actually don't. We're based in the Southeast, but if we can get one started here, that'd be great. And so in its first year, it had 44 locations, and 5 years later, we're up to 654 locations. There'll be 200,000 volunteers and over 100,000 guests with special needs. And so after that first experience for me, I really had never had any exposure, honestly, to the special needs community.
Yeah.
And so that was, I was kind of hooked after that. And it's exactly what you just said, which is it's not just the special needs community that you're serving. It's like an ecosystem of kind of love and just affection that's generated. And once you get that, you want to find out ways to scale it.
It's contagious.
Absolutely.
What's it like working with Tim Tebow?
He's the real deal. I mean, I don't know. I don't work with many celebrities, honestly, or guys that have a persona such as his. And the thing that I always tell people is he's exactly as he comes across on television and through his many different platforms. He believes this all the way down to his soul. I mean, he was born in the Philippines. As a missionary kid, got exposed to those with disabilities at a very young age, and it's just connected with them. And everywhere along the way, with his football career on ESPN now, and now when he switched to baseball, everywhere he sees it is actually just an opportunity to serve God and to serve those that are less fortunate. So he sees it as a privilege, and it's authentic.
You've hosted Night to Shine in other countries. What's it like to host the event in different cultures?
Yeah, it's a wonderful experience. So Tim called me, I guess, 3 years ago now and said, hey, man, we really want to get to Latin America, and we thought maybe you could help us out. I'm not sure exactly what made him think I had connections down there, but fortunately, I did know a guy that knows everybody in Latin America, and so we started in a town called Piura, which is in the north of Peru near Ecuador, and we just found this incredible community. And I think that when people ask, well, what's the difference between being in somewhat of a developing country, especially in the poorer regions of Peru. And the way my schedule worked is I would do Thursday night in Peru, and then Friday night we would host in New York. So back to back, you're going from one of the poorer regions in the world to arguably the most expensive piece of real estate in the world, because we were hosting in Times Square. And I'd say, certainly there's differences with appearances and the physical structures, but honestly, the interaction was the same. It's joy is universal, and I think everyone's seeking that. And so, while some of the exteriors are different, the experience is really the same.
Can you tell us about your organization, 100 Million Strong?
Sure. So after a couple years of doing the Night to Shine, every year, this prom is intended to be once a year, and that's kind of how it maximizes its impact. And so a lot of people were saying, well, what's next? What's next? And I had visited this Down syndrome hospital in Paris, and they wanted to expand into the States, and we discussed some ideas, and it being Paris, of course, somehow a fashion show came up. And I said, all right, well, let's try it. And so I was hosting a fundraiser for Tim in the city, and I decided, let's just go for it. And we had 50 models with special needs, and we've now done a number of shows, and that inspired me to start my own nonprofit.
Wow, that's amazing. And then what made the cause so important to you that you've just been, like you said, you were hooked from the first event that you went to?
Well, I think there's a lot of disconnectedness culturally. I think we're in different ways isolated. I think something like people move an average of 11 times as Americans. So there's this disconnectedness. We're not around our families, around civil society. And so we're always kind of searching for things to bring us together, and expressing the dignity of the human person in all walks of life, I think, is we can be measured by how we serve the least among us. And when people are given that opportunity, it breaks down all of these barriers. And that transparency is something I've worked in a lot of different charitable organizations. I've never seen something like this. And so I felt like really it was not really a choice. It was something that just to try to expand as much as I could.
I'm sure you've come across so many moments in your time with both charities and nonprofits that you've walked away and thought that was really special. But can you share with us one of those times?
Sure, yeah. So when at our first fashion show, there was a young girl, about probably 10 years old. She came out onto the runway. She has Down syndrome, and she just got scared. She had a human moment of, wow, all these people looking at me on the runway, and she had this beautiful dress on, and she just covered her eyes and didn't want to go out, and I didn't really know exactly what to do. So I came up and I said, do you want me to walk with you? And she said, no. And her friend came up, no, but then mom came up. And through her fingers, she could see mom. And she kind of slowly reached out her hand, and they walked down and of course, by this point, the crowd is like, this is not a normal runway show. We cheer and we make signs, and everyone, gets excited. By that point, when she realized all of it was for her, you've never seen a quicker turnaround from tears to the biggest smile you've ever seen, just like that. And we've got kind of a play-by-play pictures of that event. And that was our first one, and I knew that was the moment I knew we had something. And so now we had to try to find ways to expand it across the country.
Oh, that was really touching. I got teary-eyed on that one. Real quickly, what do you think are common misconceptions about people with special needs in our society, that they have in our society?
Well, I think one is that they don't have anything to offer, that they're just to be, cared for. But again, the gifts that they give, there's a philosopher named Jean Vanier who created these homes for the disabled, and people and his volunteers would live with the community. It wasn't you came to work and served for a few hours and left, or maybe it was your job. You lived within the community. And what he said was there's effectively two dynamics in the world. There's the power dynamic, which we all are a part of, money and status and greed and romantic relationships and all those sorts of things where we're kind of competing. And then there's love, and hopefully we find those authentic moments. Well, those with special needs often they don't even operate in this world in the power dynamic, but they operate, so their entire currency is love. And so when they're operating with that, and if you think about it in that sense, they're experts at this. We're terrible at it oftentimes. We're not so good at this part either, but they're experts in the currency of love, and that's what they offer.
It's the first time I've ever heard that explained that way, and that was absolutely beautiful. Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Sure, happy to do it. I'm just ripping off that philosopher, so I can't take that.
Well, still, it's still beautiful. Thank you so much.